Welcome back to Before the Day Ends. So we are finishing up chapter 24 today. This is the last section of Jesus' talking to us prior to him going to the cross. So these are important words, kind of his last words, if you will. Now, we're going to finish 24 today and go to 24 next time, but I want to say that the warnings he gives us in 24 are mirrored in 25. So these are actually really, really important statements of Jesus about what he expects from us and what he wants to say to us. Now remember, before this, earlier in 24, Jesus had talked to us about the end of the world, right? He was with the disciples, they're looking at the temple precincts, and he talks about the end. Now again, I would say that's not just the end of the world, the end of their world, but the end of our world, right? So it applies to us personally as well as we face our ends in life. So one of the things he does say is that, hey, no one knows, right? It's going to come like a thief in the night, he says earlier. So take a look here now at 24, beginning in verse 36. He says, "But about that day and hour no one knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. For as the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man." Now again, I want to say here real quickly that when he talks about the Son of Man, he's referring to this image from Daniel 7, which referred to the destruction of these empires, Babylon, Persia, the Greeks, and the coming of God's kingdom. So when he says the coming of the Son of Man, he's talking about that image from Daniel 7 of victory when God's going to install his kingdom permanently forever, and he is that figure of the Son of Man. Okay, verse 40. "Then two will be in the field, one will be taken and one will be left. Two women will be grinding meal together, one will be taken, one will be left. Keep awake, therefore," and this is kind of the key right here. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. So again, I want to say real quickly, all those people who are predicting the end of the world and predicting when it's going to happen and all that stuff, there's a problem there, because even Jesus says he doesn't know. So if he doesn't know, I doubt they know. So when you hear that kind of stuff, just kind of shove it aside, because to be honest, if Jesus doesn't know, they don't know. But Jesus does say it's unexpected. So if they say they know, it's probably not then, right? So when you look at this here, what's the point though? The point is not when. It's not when. It's, are you watching? There's a difference between watching and waiting. And what I mean by that is that if you're waiting for something, it's pretty passive, right? You're not really doing anything. You're kind of just sitting there. However, if you're watching, you're being expectant. You're looking out for something. So when someone's coming into your house, someone important or a relative, and you're really excited about it, do you kind of sit on the couch and just wait for them to show up? Or are you watching? Are you preparing the house? Are you preparing some snacks? Are you looking out the window every couple minutes? Are you watching for them to pull into the driveway, to come down the street? So Jesus is saying, I want you to be watching. Now, what does it mean to watch for Jesus at his return? Well, verse 45. "Who then is the faithful and wise slave, whom his master has put in charge of his household, to give the other slaves their allowance of food at the proper time? Blessed is that slave whom his master will find at work when he arrives. Truly I tell you, he will put that one in charge of all his possessions. But if that wicked slave says to himself, 'My master is delayed,' and he begins to beat his fellow slaves, and eats and drinks with drunkards, the master of that slave will come on a day when he does not expect him, at an hour that he does not know. He will cut him to pieces and put him with the hypocrites, where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth." So, if you're watching, if this is what you're doing, is you're watching, then you're also going to be working. That's the image here, right? You have a slave who is in charge of many things. We've seen this parable before, and he is faithful even when the master's not looking. When the master's not around, he is doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's not trying to sneak off and do stuff or cut corners or those kind of things. He is actually working. So part of watching is working. And it is these two themes, watching and working, which will flow over into 25. We'll see an expansion on these two. So what are we to be doing while Jesus is away? Watching for his return, and that means we're working while he's not here and being faithful. And so those two things are the themes will be in 25. Now I want to say one more thing today as we introduce these two very, very important themes of watching and working, and that is the punishment. Because in 25, these two themes are expanded pretty large. We want to spend some time on those. But the punishment, and we see it here at the very end in verse 51, where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. Well, there are a few different images of what we call hell or punishment in the Bible. And one, and we're going to go back a little bit, is in, let's say, Matthew 18, verse 9. And if your eye causes you to stumble, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with one eye than to have two eyes and be thrown into the hell of fire. So right here, this word hell of fire. You notice even in the Bible here, it says Gehenna. So the first image we have of hell, we're in this idea of punishment, is this word, this Greek word we see here, Gehenna. And this is often translated hell of fire or something like that. Well, Gehenna is a Greek word, but it comes from a Hebrew word, and that's Hebrew for gay, and then ben, which is sons of, and then Hinnom. So what this literally means is the valley of the sons of Hinnom. And this was a place, is outside Jerusalem. It's mentioned several times in the Old Testament, in Joshua, 2 Chronicles, different places. And what happens in this place is that when Israel was apostate, when they weren't following God, they were following the Baals, they would sacrifice their children. So in Jeremiah 7:31, it says this, and they go on building the high places of Topheth, which is in the valley of the sons of Hinnom, this place here, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I did not command, nor did come into my mind. So they would sacrifice children. They would literally take their children and sacrifice them to their gods, to what they're trying to do is get the gods to do what they want. So really they were sacrificing their children for their wants and their needs. So they were sacrificing for their children for what they wanted. And this place then becomes a garbage dump. No one wanted to do anything. When they went back to following God, they didn't want to do anything with this place. And so they went and they turned this place into a garbage dump where there's always something burning, right? If you have garbage there and animal remains and stuff like that, they would just burn it. And so there's this constant burning place with worms, and it was just this disgusting garbage dump. So what Jesus is saying is, hell is like that. It's this disgusting garbage dump that you don't want to be there. That is just filled with filth and horribleness. It's a place you don't want to be. Another image that we get from Jesus and from the Bible is Hades. And this is a Greek word, and again, it kind of parallels, if you will, to this Hebrew concept of Sheol. And Sheol is this kind of, again, this place of torment, and we see that in Luke 16, it says, in Hades, where he was being tormented, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. So we have this idea of torment and so forth there. A third image that we have is, again, a place of destruction. In Revelation 20:14, it says this, and death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. And anyone whose name not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. Again, this is called the second death. Now, the last image I want to get through is the fourth one, is this one. We're going to see this one here in Matthew, outer darkness. So, outer darkness was weeping and gnashing of teeth. And we see this, and I'll show you here in Matthew 22. So verse 13. Then the king said to the attendants, "Bind him hand and foot and throw him into the outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." So again, another image of things where we don't want to be. All these images we have, Gehenna, Hades, lake of fire, outer darkness, gnashing of teeth, all these images are places that we don't want to be. In fact, the images of hell are pretty inconsistent, right? Because you got lake of fire and outer darkness, and how do those go together? So please understand that I don't think these are literal images, that this is what hell is going to be, like a lake of fire or Sheol or hell of fire, outer darkness. It's not going to be these things, but these images reflect something that's worse than these things. That these images of hell are literally to scare the hell out of us, or more likely, to scare us out of hell. That we don't want to be these things. And there's something else about these things that's even worse than the fact of, burning and worms and darkness and weeping and all that. Something much worse, and that is this simple idea that God is not there. When you cry out and you're in distress and something's going wrong and you're in pain or you're suffering, you want to be able to cry out to God and say, "God, help me." Right? We even see in the story of Abraham that he cries out, right? He wants some water. But the idea here is that God is not there. And therefore, we cry out to no one. And that's what hell, I think, really is. A place where there is no God. And Jesus is saying to us, you don't want to be here. Instead, you need to be watching for my return, because it's going to come at a time and a place when you don't expect. And while you're watching, to be working. Don't be just sitting around doing nothing. That this should be an active participation in Jesus' return. So when he comes back, we are, in fact, ready. Okay, so next time we're going to talk and look at Matthew 25, and kind of dig into these two ideas here a little deeper in these parables that Jesus is going to give us. And then after 25, we get into 26 through 28, which is the passion narrative and the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. All right, we'll see you next time before the day ends.